Check out our new sponsors, The Games Cube. It's a great family-run local game store boasting Australia's biggest selection of MTG singles. Use the coupon code The Eternal Gathering to get 5% off store-wide. Check their site out in the link below. G'day everyone, welcome to The Eternal Gathering. The Gathering here with another podcast. Today we're going to be doing Innistrad Midnight Hunt. We're going to do a review, and today is going to be a little bit different than what you've usually done. We're not going to go through the whole set and talk about each mythic and each rare that we think will see play. I think we are going to be doing a more of a take of what our favorite kind of top cards are from the set. So with my co-hosts here, we've come up with a list of cards that just we liked from the set, not particularly the cards that we think are the best cards. I don't think we really went into it that deep. We're just more cards that we like from the set and where we think it will see play. So today we got two co-hosts with me. We've got Michiro.
Hey everyone.
And we also got Junior here today.
Howdy, how are we?
We are good. Before we get started, guys, just your thoughts on the actual set itself. What do you guys like or don't like about the set? Are you excited? We'll start with maybe you, Michiro.
Well, now that we've got all the cards in front of us and we can see everything that's coming out, it's great to finally put ideas together of what's going to happen, what decks we're going to build, how we're going to use it all these new mechanics, some cards that have come back. It's pretty cool. Pretty excited now that it's a bit more real.
Yeah, I'm of the same mindset. I think it's a cool set. I like new mechanics, always entering Magic. Half the time I got no idea what they do. These are a bit more simple, which is probably good. But it makes it fun as well because, you know, people that have a bit more Magic knowledge than I do put together decks and base those decks around obviously new mechanics and see if it works. And obviously it provides a bit more variety to Magic.
Yeah, I think this set is done really well. It really feels like Innistrad because last time we were there, it was Eldrazi were attacking everyone in Innistrad, and it was more of an Eldrazi kind of theme to it. Where this time around they've gone back to the original Innistrad, and werewolves in this set obviously are the more prominent tribe. We've got a sprinkle of vampires and spirits and humans and whatnot, and I think overall, I'm really happy with the mechanics, which we'll talk about in a second. In the set, I think it would be really fun to play this in a sealed format or a draft format.
Yeah, nice. I was going to say that as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, with us here in Sydney, Australia, we can't really do that because the set comes out this coming Friday. So unfortunately, won't be able to do that just since we're in lockdown still. But definitely will be interested in playing Arena and having some games on there. So I think overall the set looks really fun, looks interesting. There's definitely some cards I'm interested in, and I know there's some cards that you guys are interested in. But before we get into those cards, maybe we'll just do a recap of the mechanics just for our listeners in case they want to know what kind of things to kind of look forward to in this new set. So we're going to be going to the mechanics. And our first one is Daybound, Nightbound. Do you want to give us a rundown, Michiro, as to what this mechanic does?
Yeah, of course. So I'm relatively new to Magic, so I don't know if this mechanic has been used before in Innistrad or anywhere else, but Daybound, Nightbound essentially is when these creatures transform. So you start off a day, a particular ability happens, and then changes to night, essentially. So if it is day, if a player casts no spells during their turn, it becomes night next turn. And if that does happen and it is night, if a player casts at least 2 spells during their turn, it becomes day the next turn.
Yeah. So transform is a big mechanic from original Innistrad. and there's many ways that you can transform in this set. And I think Daybound, Nightbound is pretty much similar to what they had in the original Innistrad, but they've kind of made it a little bit simpler and a little bit easier to stay in the day or stay in the night. Because with the previous one, I believe is if any player casts 2 spells during any turn, then it would switch back to the day bound, I guess. So it was a bit harder to stay in Nightbound because if you didn't play any spells on your turn, your opponent could have played, a couple of spells at your end step with some instance to change transform your creatures back into the Daybound side. So it was a bit hard to kind of keep the Nightbound creatures, but this way they've kind of made it a bit easier to keep the Nightbound. And it's also interesting that when you play the card, if it is nighttime, you play it with the Nightbound card face up first. And if it's daytime, the Daybound card comes in first. So for example, if it was night and you wanted to play this card here, Mara Wing Shredder, you pay the 3 mana and you bring in the Wind Shredder. So it would be the 3/5 reach if it was already nighttime in the game. And once Daybound, Nightbound starts, it remains within the game for the rest of the game. So similar to the Monarch mechanic from Commander, where it's when that comes into play, it remains in the game for the rest of the round. So yeah, that's kind of what it is.
So thinking of a commander, sorry, just a quick question. Thinking of a commander application for this mechanic, am I correct in saying that if it does come in Daybound or Nightbound and an ability happens, that affects every player, not just you?
Correct. It affects every player. Obviously, you would need cards that, I guess, need day or Nightbound to be relevant to you for that to matter. Otherwise, it won't really affect other players if they're not playing those kind of cards. But everyone, would play in a day or night.
Yep, makes sense.
All right. Next mechanic is Disturb. I'll go through this one, I guess. So we've got another card that transforms, but this is a bit different. You're going to have your front side, which here, the example we have is Malevolent Hermit, and it's 2 mana, and then you put it into play, and it has an ability on the top, but the one we're looking at is Disturb. So it's when this is in your graveyard, you pay the Disturb cost, and then you transform it, and it comes into play as whatever it's transformed into. And they're all spirits, I believe. So they all come in as a spirit of some sort, and then they're another creature, and that can't change. So if it's day or night, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be either the front side or the back side, depending if where you played it from. You played it from your hand, it's the front side. If you play it from your graveyard, it will be the back side. And then once it dies from the back side, it gets exiled. So you can't keep recasting it back from the graveyard. So it's only a one-shot kind of thing for that creature to remain in the battlefield. So interesting way to still use flip cards and transform cards from the graveyard. So interesting mechanic there for Disturb.
It's actually a pretty decent card as well.
Yeah, it was a decent card, eh? There are some decent Disturb cards. Next one is Coven. Maybe Michiro, will go back to you. Would you like to go through Coven?
Yeah, sure. So from what I understand, when a player controls, is it 3 or more creatures with different power stats, Coven is activated essentially, and there's some sort of bonus ability. Yeah. So in this case, Candle and Cavalry gains trample until end of turn.
Yeah. So I think this is relatively with the human tribe. Most of the humans have Coven ability, and the ability can be different for every card. It's just once you've met the criteria, which, like you said, 3 or more different creatures with different powers, which probably can be hard to get in a constructive game. I think it'd be a bit harder to achieve that. But once you do achieve it, you get some kind of bonus, and that bonus is different for each card. Decay, you want to go through this one, Junior?
Easy. So usually when whatever creature dies, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decay, which means it can't block. And then when it does attack, you sacrifice it at the end of your combat stage. So I'm a bit iffy about this. I think like it's decent, but I think it's quite niche. Do they get haste?
They don't get haste. It's basically a token that can't block, so it's not obviously good for defense. And once it attacks, it will exile at the end of combat. So it's only one shot attack. So it's I guess what they try to do, from my understanding, is make it a bit easier to get these tokens. So there's going to be a lot of tokens available, or cards that make tokens available in this set. However, the drawback is that they obviously can't block, and they're gonna die essentially when they attack. So they're not going to stick around on the board for very long. So I guess the only really good thing about it is if you really want to go wide, if you can try and make a bunch of tokens at one go to attack next turn, that's one way of going. Or probably the better option, and probably the more, I guess, competitive option, would be to use them as sack outlets if you need to sacrifice creatures for certain things.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to sack mechanic.
Yeah, I thought this mechanic is only usually good when you've got a creature on the battlefield, enchantment, whatever artifact that has a sack outlet to take advantage of.
And there are a few cards in this set, I think, as I've read through them, have that exact ability. Whenever a creature dies, you draw a card. Whenever a creature dies,
exactly.
Essentially something else comes back. So yeah.
But even like, how many hobbling zombies are you going to have in your deck to take advantage of the fact that when it dies, you get a 2/2 black zombie, and it's 3 to cast as well. Like, obviously there are better cards with Decay on it, but I'm just saying, like, for instance, that 3 to cast for a 2/2, very average.
Yeah,
you get that other zombie, and I don't know.
The decay can come in like different ways. So like you can have like a thing that, like, some of these creatures have the text where, you know, if it dies, it comes back as the same creature but with decay. So you're going to get back you can get back like let's say, for example, Emrakul has decay on it. You know what I mean? It will die, it will come back as a 15/15 creature, still with the same stats, but with decay, so it means it can't block. And when it attacks, you have to sacrifice it. So there are different ways that the decay works. Basically, the decay bit is the can't block, and then when it attacks, sacrifice at end of combat. That's the decay bit. The 2/2 stats of the zombie is just something that I guess they are using a lot of, because they're using zombies obviously in this set. And zombies are 2/2s. But you can get a 10/10 DK creature as well with some of the cards.
Yeah, so there's definitely ways to cheat in big creatures.
Yeah, if you attack with a zombie, it does combat damage or whatever. Can you sack it before it gets sacked to the decay trigger? I guess you can, right?
I think you can, yes. I think it'd be damage, and then after damage, this will trigger. So the sacrifice will trigger, and then while that triggers on a stack, you can sacrifice it to something else instead. All right, and I believe the last one is Flashback. Junior, you can go through this one again.
So Flashback's obviously not a new mechanic by any means, but you use your card the first time and then goes into the graveyard, and then you obviously flashback the same card with its flashback cost.
So for example here, you know, you got 2 mana first time you play it, and it does what it does. So for example, this one looks at the top 3 cards, and you get a creature, put it into your hand, or it's going to your graveyard. And then later in the game, you can play its flashback cost, and you exile that card afterwards, and you get the same ability again. You can only play the flashback equal to whenever you could have casted that. So for example, this is a sorcery, so you can only play it at sorcery speed, but if there were instants with flashback, you can play them at instant speed. But usually the flashback has the exile clause on it, so it'll just be used once from your hand and then once from your graveyard, and then it's gone for the rest of the game. So yeah, those are our mechanics. So we're going to go through and go through to cards. So this is the exciting bit. Just a bit of a caveat before we go into it. So we've got a couple of honorable mentions, and then we're going to go into the cards proper. Junior and Michiro and I came up with 5 cards each that we were looking forward to. And Michiro and Junior don't know the cards that I picked, and they don't know how I've broken it down, and so they're going to be reacting as well to this live. So first we're going to do our honorable mentions, and these are just a couple of cards that I wanted to kind of talk about that for one reason or another didn't make it into our proper list. And our first one here is Delver of Secrets. And the reason why I put an honorable mention is it's a card that's been around. It's a reprinted card, but this is the first time it's going to be Pioneer legal. So I think that's a big reprint for Pioneer. And I'm really excited to see what he can do in that format. And we know that it's a card played in Legacy. It's seen a bit of play in Modern as well. It is quite strong. And there is an Arclight deck in Pioneer. And there are some Spellslinger decks as well that this could definitely fit into as a really good one drop. So an honorable mention there. Our next one we've got here is Curse of Shaken Faith. And I'm thinking this is a good sideboard option, definitely for standard if Spellslinger decks become thing, but also in other formats. And I think this is one of the cards that you picked, Junior.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so what are your thoughts on this card? Did you see this as a sideboard option, or where did you see this?
So not only is it a good sideboard option because it gives the other person something to think about, but I think it's a good card in CEDH. Obviously, if your play group uses cards like Ad Nauseam, for instance, it gives them something to really think about. And obviously, every card that they cast, you get 2 damage, which could be, another extra card or whatever that they can't pick up from their deck, or gives them something to think about. As well as, what's the other card? Underworld Breach. 1 and a red. And then obviously, they can cast spells from the graveyard, but it limits how many that they might be able to cast. And it obviously stops combos and whatnot. So I think it's a pretty decent option.
Yeah, I guess if your play group does that.
This would affect me with Bolas as well. Actually, now that I think
Bolas Citadel, yeah.
Yeah, Bolas Citadel.
Yeah, I think if your play group does that kind of stuff, then obviously it's a good card to bring in for EDH. All right. So now we've got our honorable mentions out of the way. Let's go into, I guess, our picks. And first of all, our favorites. So these are our favorite cards that we would like to play with in our own decks. I'm going to go through each of them and why we have picked these cards. So first one is Michiro's favorite card. Enduring Angel, and it transforms to Angelic Enforcer. So Michiro, tell us why you love this card.
So first and foremost, I've got a hell of an affinity for angels, that's for sure. Anything that gives me extra abilities, flying, hexproof, whatever it may be. But one of my favorite cards in my Kalia commander deck is Platinum Angel. It wins me the game quick. And something like this is another option. So especially against you guys as well, we are playing so competitively, our life total does get to 0 real quick. So if it does get anywhere near there, at least it's my last saving grace. The cheeky last sentence though. Flying double strike, you have hexproof. If your life total will be reduced to 0 or less, instead transform Enduring Angel and your life total becomes 3. Then if Enduring Angel didn't transform this way, you lose the game. So essentially stops me copying it as well.
Yeah. I think I like how you just mentioned with Platinum Angel, because if your life total goes to 0 with Platinum Angel on the battlefield, it doesn't really matter. But then it would also trigger this to transform and then bring your life total back up, and also become a really powerful flying creature as well that we need to deal with on the battlefield. So
Yeah,
I
of
think it
course.
works well with Platinum Angel on the battlefield and it's on the battlefield at the same time.
Yeah, I'll definitely be putting this card in that deck to see how it works. Definitely.
Yeah. Oh, I think it'd be a good addition for sure, because it's like a double layered, not win con, just defense basically for us to have to deal with before having to kill you personally. You know, like
Yeah. Or
All
I should
right.
say, I'm not putting this card in my deck at all.
All right.
No, I definitely will.
the only
Next.
thing is, I think it's easy to kill when it's transformed.
That is, it's easy to kill either way, really. It's only got
Yeah.
3 defense in its non-transform state. But it's definitely something that can take over the game if left unchecked once it does transform.
Yeah. Is it?
I've got oh, sorry to cut you off. I've also got cards in that deck that'll bring my life total back up to my starting life total. So
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
if that card or those cards are on the field, then I'm bang up to 40 odd life total, and then if that angel does attack, 80 life total. You guys enjoy that.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, next up, we've got Junior's favorite card from the set, Willow Geist. Junior, tell us why you love this card.
I'm thinking purely for dredge deck. Whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, so if they're exiled, obviously that sucks when you're in dredge, but put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, Willow Geist. And then when it dies, obviously you gain that life. So you could gain heaps of life potentially, because you're obviously always putting cards into your graveyard. But I think more interesting is when you do dredge one of your cards, or if you bring one of your zombies out or whatever, for whatever reason, as soon as it leaves your graveyard, +1/+1 counters on this, and it's got trample. I think it's a great card for dredge, and I'm probably going to struggle thinking of cards to take out of dredge to fit 4 of these in. I think it's that good for dredge, because not only do you get a really strong creature, if it dies, you gain that much life as well, which just obviously dredge can win turn 4 if you're lucky, obviously, with the cards that have been banned recently that usually go in those slots. But at least this way it gives you a turn 5, 6, possibly 7 if it gets big enough. So I think it's a really good card.
Right. I don't think it's going to be that good, to be honest, in dredge, because I think if you dredge this into your graveyard, there's no way to get it back. And I don't like the clauses whenever one or more cards leave your graveyard, because that means if this would be really good if it triggered on each card that left your graveyard, because then you could play this with Delve, or you can play this even as a sideboard option if you're going to be running into graveyard hate. Because if you put this on the battlefield and then they were to exile your graveyard, you would get a bunch of +1/+1 counters. That would be amazing. But if they did that, you only get the 1 counter, which I think is a big drawback. And a 1 mana 1/1 trample, and if you have no graveyard to be able to bring things out of, for example, if they bring in that graveyard hate, then it's never going to get bigger. The life gain when it dies is okay, little clause there, but I don't think this would be a good fit for dredge, in my opinion. That's just my thoughts, I guess. And then we go to my card, which is Teferi, Who Slays the Sunset, which is a planeswalker. And a very interesting planeswalker that has definitely some interesting decisions to make with your +1. So you can choose up to 1 target artifact, 1 target creature, and 1 target land. So 3 things you can choose. You get to untap the chosen permanents that you control, or tap the chosen permanents you don't control. Then you gain 2 life. So already with this +1 commander, you have the ability to untap an artifact and a land. The artifacts usually are Mana Crypts, Soul Rings, Mana Vaults, and then you got your land, which can be a Gaia's Cradle, for example. That's a lot of mana you can get back. And you can also tap down a creature your opponent controls that's, you can get through extra damage, or do this after you've already tapped, and then untapping one of your creatures to go on defense. And the gaining 2 life, I think, can be relevant in more competitive formats, especially like Pioneer, Standard, and Modern. If this is playing Modern, I think that can be relevant little, I guess, extra ability. Sorry, there. The -2 is just anticipate. Look at top 3 cards of your library, put 1 into your hand, rest in the bottom of your library, so some card selection. And the -7, if you ever get to it, just gives you so much advantage, able to untap all your opponents during each opponent's untap step and drawing a card on their draw step. So in Commander, you're untapping each turn and drawing an extra card. You can counter everything that your opponents are doing. You're able to block all the time. After you attack, it's just amazing. -7 ability. I mean, you're not going to get there all the time, but it's something that can definitely win you the game and outgrind your opponents. So I think overall, a really interesting card, and I don't know if it's strong enough to see play in the older formats, but it has abilities that might play well if you kind of build around it. Maybe you might need to play some more creatures with it. Maybe more of a mid-range kind of deck. Maybe looking at Bant or Just Guy deck instead of a kind of like control deck with a lot of counters and stuff like that. Because you want to be able to untap maybe a creature of your own to put as a defense. So yeah, that's my pick for my favorite card from the set. Any
I
thoughts?
will be very impressed with this if you get to Ulti.
No, 100%.
If it lasts that long.
Yeah. But I mean, as we've already discussed in early episodes and stuff with your Nicol Bolas, you could easily get to 7 like super quick.
Oh, in that deck, yeah.
Yeah, but like once you get to 7, it's basically game over, I reckon. You'll get way too much advantage, but I think it also I think it's a really good card in Commander because you've got so many different ways to protect your Teferi. You don't necessarily need creatures. You've got so many counter spells and etc. So I think it's a good card for Commander, CEDH, or even EDH, obviously, slower format. I don't think you'll see much play in Modern because
It's a bit slow.
deck. Yeah, it's a bit slow, and counter decks are already really tight for slots anyway, especially in planeswalkers and stuff. So
yeah, I don't think it's as good as a 3 fairy or the Hero Dominaria.
yeah,
but it's a good mixture.
Plus Jace as well.
Yeah, it's a good mixture of abilities that it might potentially see play somewhere.
Yeah.
All right, our next I guess topic here is Commander picks. So our picks for Commander, we've got our first pick here as best tribal commander, and I'll guess this one will go with you, Michiro. Why is this the best tribal commander?
Sure. I think let's go through the card first. So 1 red and a green. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more wolves and or werewolves, it becomes night, then transform any number of human werewolves you control. So, as you said, tribal deck, this is going to be fantastic, if not one of the best tribal commanders to come out of this set. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more wolves, transform any number of human werewolves you control. So, it's definitely a deck you're going to go wide with, so you can pick and choose what you're mucking around with. And then when it does ultimately transform, Tovola, the Midnight Scourge. Whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Target wolf or werewolf you control gets +X/+0 against trample until end of turn. This is a great card.
Yeah, like just the drawing cards is what you want to do in Commander. You're gonna be wanting to draw as many cards as you can. This is a Commander itself that you can play that draws you cards. It's a Commander that works well with old werewolves as well because it allows you to transform any number of human werewolves you control. It doesn't necessarily need a Nightbound, Daybound mechanic of your werewolves for them to transform. We can transform the old werewolves that don't have Daybound and Nightbound. And then the other ability on a transform size lets you pump up a creature or multiple creatures if you have enough mana to do the extra bit of damage that you need to close out the game or get you the extra drawing of cards with the trample damage. So definitely the best werewolf commander that's out there. And
so cheap, such a low CMC as well.
Yeah,
so,
and a good stats.
Great value.
Yeah, definitely see this seeing play in Commander 100% as your commander for werewolves. Then we've got our best build around. Again, Michiro, your choice here, Gissa. Let's see why you like her.
So, Gisa, Glorious Resurrector. I chose her as well. So if a creature an opponent controls will die, exile it instead. At the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Gisa Glorious Resurrector onto the battlefield under your control, and they gain Decayed. So this is going to be perfect for those decks that hate Graveyard. So I'm looking forward to using this. I think I'm going to consider building a deck about this. May not be competitive, but I think it will be fun to play with.
Yeah, I think the incidental Graveyard Hate is really good in Commander, and you can just put this out and let it sit on the battlefield, and there's going to be creatures that are going to die. You got 3 other players there. There's going to be people attacking other people, not necessarily you having to kill their creatures. So once their creatures die, you just get a free creature, and if there's any ETB triggers with those creatures, even more value. So just having her out on the battlefield by itself, people are going to eventually attack, or they're going to try and get rid of this. If you put Indestructible on Gissa, then you're pretty happy.
Yeah, definitely. Get her out early, Indestructible or Shroud or something to that extent, and use her ability that game. Yeah, I think it'll be fun.
If you could Thassa's Oracle off Gisa, I'd be very impressed.
Oh yeah.
Imagine that
Oracle.
Someone like deals with someone else's Thassa, then you get a copy of it, and then you obviously demonic consultation. Oh, that'd be so good. I would honestly
that'd be sick.
With this card though, I think there's 2 drawbacks. The first being it doesn't exile cards that are already in the graveyard when it comes out. So in Commander, obviously if it's turn 5 or 6, if it gets to that point, any card that's in the graveyard stays in the graveyard. So you miss all that value as well. And also, if you're sweeping the board and Gisa dies, then you don't get all the other creatures that died the same.
Yeah,
they don't get the decay and stuff. So I think there's some downfalls, which makes it probably not something that I would add to any of my decks, because I think there's better niche cards. But for, a muck around, interesting bit of flavor, spice, all that kind of stuff, I think it's pretty neat.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen immediate either, the ability, does it? So
no, it doesn't.
On your upkeep. So I suppose that would be a little bit of a drawback as well.
Yeah.
But still a cool card.
Yep.
Yes. All right, best in the 99. We got Smoldering Egg and Junior. This is one of your picks. Let's go through it.
Great card. Fantastic card. especially obviously for Commander, which is why it's taken up this spot. So with Smoldering Egg, you get 7 small, is it Ember tokens or Ember counters, whatever it is. Yeah, Ember counters. If you get 7 of them, it transforms into Ashmouth with your CMC. And then when it transforms, whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Ashmouth does 2 damage to any target, which I think is very important because you could cast a card to draw a card, for instance, but then you could also deal damage to someone's mana dork or something like that. So the fact that it says any target, I think, is super important. And not only that, but it also is an extra win con in Commander as well. If someone if someone counters something and you've glass cannoned it, then you're in trouble. But at least with Smoldering Egg, you've got another win con on the battlefield. It comes in as a 0/4 as well, so it's not threatening until you can passively receive Ember counters as well. So people could forget about it, and then you flip it over and bang, you could go off, you could combo, you could do anything. It's a good passive card, like I said, as well. You could just grind value out of it. I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think a great card for 99 if you have a Spellslinger deck. It's definitely a win con in there.
Yeah.
All right. Next one is cards that will see play. So not necessarily know if they exactly will see play, but we think they have the potential for some formats. So we're going to go into our first one, the Meat Hook Massacre. I think it can see play Commander and Standard. Junior, this was your pick again. Where do you see this scene play?
Obviously, you've nailed it on the head with Commander and Standard. It grinds value with both formats. Standard is a longer format, as everyone knows. So even if you cast it for its 2 without casting X, you're still grinding value. Whenever a creature you control dies, your opponent loses 1 life. Rolls reversed, you gain 1 life. So obviously it does some good utility. And then also Commander, same thing. But I'm looking at it in my 8-rack deck. So depending on obviously how many mana I've got out or have access to, you could wipe the board, you could prolong the game as well, which is what I'm always trying to do with my 8-rack deck. It's hard if you're going up against quick burn decks or anything like that. But if you could wipe the board, not only have you stopped completely what they're trying to do, but you've grinded value with that as well. So you gain back all your life with all the creatures you killed using Meat Hook. And generally speaking, they've got low stats as well. So I don't know. I think it's modern playable as well, to be fair.
The other thing is you can just play it for 2 black and not even bother playing the X and just put it down as an enchantment as well. You don't have to necessarily pay any mana into that X. So obviously enchantments are harder to get rid of than creatures. So having a way to put this out for an aristocrat kind of style deck where you're sacrificing your own stuff and putting this out as an enchantment just to drain your opponents out of the game or get yourself some life as well. Incidentally, it's another great option, especially if you're playing Commander and Standard as well. Standard has aristocrat strategies going into Midnight Hunt.
Yeah.
All right.
What's the next
and
card?
We got Infernal Grasp. Definitely a card that we'll see play in Standard and Pioneer, I think. Modern, there's potential. And this card is a 1 and a black for an instant. Destroy target creature, you lose 2 life. That's it. Simple card to read. The clause there, destroy target creature doesn't come into mana spells, especially instant speed, that can destroy any creature. Usually you got cards like Go for the Throat, which is non-artifact creatures, or you got Doomblade, which is non-black creatures, which also costs 2 mana. but this one, you can destroy any creature without any drawbacks, except for the losing 2 life, which can come into consideration sometimes. Maybe you want to be playing this in a Death Shadows deck where you want to lose that 2 life. But definitely Pioneer does. The only other card that is 2 mana that can destroy anything is the Assassin's Trophy. Otherwise, there's no other spell that can kill something as good as Infernal Grasp does. And Standard, I think this is going to see play in Standard for a long time. What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's a good card. I don't think it's modern. I don't think it will see much play in modern, other than it being a budget option, purely because I think there's better cards that do what this is doing for more value. What's the Phyrexian card?
Dismember.
Dismember. Yeah. So obviously, if you're playing Death Shadow, Dismember is better than Eternal Grasp, in my opinion. Does more damage to you. It's more of a utility card as well. It could cost you 1 mana rather than the 2. Plus, you do 4 damage to yourself, which is obviously what you want to do. I was thinking, again, I know I bang on about it, but it's my favorite deck, my 8-rack deck. I think it's a decent card, decent option for that, because I don't shock myself much. The only card would be my fetch for basic land, which is just 1 life. So I've got the life to spare, but in saying that, I usually want to keep it to myself because, number 1, greedy, obviously, but number 2, I don't have many creatures in my deck, so I need to preserve my life for as long as possible until I've got my, like a firm grasp on the game, discarding and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But as you said, it does, there's no but this, but that, non-black, whatever. It's destroy target creature. Simple.
Yeah, no terms and conditions. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. No T&Cs.
All right. And finally, Michiro. Ram Carolus, Stalwart Slayer. Piney, Standard, Commander, Modern. Where can it see play? Can it see play?
Can it? All right, let's find out. 1 red and a white. So flying, haste. If a spell will deal damage to you or another permanent you control, prevent that damage. And if a spell will deal damage to an opponent or a permanent an opponent controls, it deals that much damage plus 1 instead. Okay, so this is going to see a bit of aggressive play, I think. Haste is one thing, but look, if you can prevent any damage to a permanent you control, you're going to want to do it. I think it's going to be fantastic in Modern.
Commander, I think it's also good as well if you're playing aggressive strategy as well in Commander as a 99, possibly.
I agree.
And then also the extra damage is really relevant. If you're playing like a lightning bolt for 1 mana, you're doing 4 damage instead. There's plenty of stuff that you can be playing. Like the extra 1 damage is relevant, especially if you're going straight to the face in a competitive format where life total's 20. And the haste flying, it's evasive. It's got good stats. 2 damage straight away. Attacking straight away is good with the evasion as well. So you can definitely go into standard, piney, modern decks that are aggressive.
Yeah.
Do we think offensive and defensive card? It's got both.
Yes. All right. Our final topic section. Most impactful cards. This is a top 3 I came up with. So one of each of our cards that we chose. We're going to go what I think is number 3 to number 1 most impactful card in any particular format. And we're going to start off with you, Junior, and Run and 7. So where is Run and 7 going to see play? And why is it going to be so impactful in that?
So I chose this card because I think it will be impactful, definitely. It will see most play, in my opinion, in Commander because it's easy to get to 5 mana as it is to get there in Modern because you're usually dead. or a fast format. It will see play in standard for the same reason. The games go longer. You can get to 5 mana, cast it, and then obviously grind out some value with it. But I think it'll see most play in Commander, purely for speed. You can get it out ASAP, but then also you can take advantage of land drops, landfall triggers, all that kind of stuff. Omnath decks, they would love this card for obvious reasons, put any number of lands from your hand onto the battlefield tapped. Great card.
Yeah, I think Commander, it has some capabilities there. If you're playing a landfall deck, if you want to fill your graveyard up real quick as well, it does that. It's got a good -8 where you can get a lot of card advantage if you return all permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. Modern, I don't think it's going to be good enough to see play there. Standard, definitely could see play there. Piney, I don't see any decks currently that would want it in it, but definitely could have some impact and some waves in Commander, and definitely Standard.
Yeah,
Curious to see how sought after this card's going to be. If it's going to have as much of an impact on the game as Ren 6 did, or if it's going to be at on any level in high demand. So we shall see.
I think Ren 6 is more popular because, number one, it was the first of its kind for Planeswalkers. Number two, it was so cheap to cast as well.
True. Yeah.
And it was a good utility. Like, obviously it slotted straight into Jund, which was great for them because they desperately needed something at that point in time. And same goes for any format, every person loves a cheap card. And if it's a good utility card as well, then it definitely takes up a slot minimum.
Yeah. This one isn't cheap. So as in
exactly.
Ford it is.
Yep. What's next? What's number 2?
Number 2, Michiro, Florian Voldaren Scion.
Made the list.
Surely you've stitched us up here. You've obviously taken the number 1 slot for yourself.
I have taken number 1 spot. As obviously
very convenient.
I am the number 1 host with the most. So
yeah.
I think you guys will be. We'll see when we get to it, but I think you guys will approve of my choice of number 1. But number 2 here, Michiro, you picked this one. Where's this going to see play, and why?
I did. So I thought of this as a commander. So 1 black and a red, first strike. At the beginning of your post-combat main phase, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the total amount of life your opponents lost this turn. Exile 1 of those cards and put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And you can play the exiled card this turn. So this I thought of in a combo setup. So something along the lines of Aggravated Assault. And there was another assault card.
Got Caesar Day. You got
Relentless
plenty of other ones to give you post-combat.
Yeah. So consistently untap attack. I think it'll be good fun. Plus first strike, make sure that damage always gets through. You can't go past that artwork either, right? Some obnoxious vampire sitting on the table.
I think also a great card just to put out on the battlefield and then let your other creatures deal the damage and not necessarily risk it going into combat. The first strike helps it definitely, but you don't have to play a vampire deck for this. This can just be a really aggressive deck where you're doing a lot of damage with some creatures really quickly early in the game, and just getting that card selection. Number 1, you get to look at the top X cards. So if you do 5 damage to someone, you look at top 5 cards, pick a card that you need or that you can play that turn, and you're just outgrinding your opponents really early in the game and really aggressively. So I think it's a really good commander. It's also a good card. Also, your 99 doesn't have to be commander, but I can definitely see it being a quite aggressive commander itself. Definitely
Yeah,
going to see
definitely.
play in standard. I think it's going to see play in standard for sure. I'm not sure about modern and pioneer, but it does have an ability there that is quite interesting, and does give you value. So wouldn't be surprised if it sees play in this somewhere.
What's that demon card I use? Rakdos Lord of Briars as well, where you can't cast it unless your opponent's lost life this turn.
Yeah.
I think that with this would help as well.
Yeah. All right.
What's next?
Our number one card, number one pick by yours truly.
Go.
The most
Drum roll.
impactful card is a common. Consider 1 blue, instant speed, look at the top card of your library, put that card into your graveyard if you want, and then draw a card. This will see play in standard, pioneer, modern, legacy. I'm not sure about vintage, but probably in vintage. I think this card is amazing. It is a better version of opt in almost every instance. I don't think it's gonna beat Serum Visions out. I think Serum Visions has the Scry 2 ability is quite good to set up your next play. But if you think about the decks currently in Modern that will play this, you've got any Arclight Delvers or Dragon Rage Channeler decks that want stuff in your graveyard, that want the Delirium. You can look at top card of your library, put that straight away into your graveyard if you don't want it, and then draw a card. You got dredge decks. You can look at a top card. If it's a dredge card, you put it in your graveyard, you draw it anyway, you dredge it out. Perfect there. And if you're playing opt already in your deck, why wouldn't you want to use this card as a different, or I guess a replacement for it? Because you're doing the same thing anyways, it's scrying, and then you're going to put it in the bottom if you don't want it. You just put it in your graveyard instead, and you're still drawing that next card. So I think this definitely is the most impactful card from the set. And I know it's a common, but I see it playing everywhere.
Yeah, this is a sick card. Yeah. I think this really, as I was speaking before, really goes well with my dredge deck, because I was just reading through a couple of my cards and it works really well with Creeping Chill. Never do you want to draw Creeping Chill, but I was just reading the text and it says whenever Creeping Chill is put into your graveyard from your library. So you could obviously look at Creeping Chill, you would never draw it, so you put it into your graveyard, and then obviously you do 3 damage, you gain 3 life, it goes exile, and then you get to draw a card. So you could
just dredge.
You could dredge any card in your graveyard on top of what you're trying to do.
Or an Narcomoeba as well, same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Narcomoeba as well. To be honest, I'm taking all my Narcomoebas out for Willowgeist, as we spoke about before.
Oh yeah.
Because I think it's a better card than Narcomoeba. But for the same reason, like you could look at that card, Willowgeist, you want to draw it, you never want to put it in the graveyard. So it gives you that option to obviously do what you want. So definitely. Yep. I think Dredge has struggled as well. Any kind of graveyard deck has really struggled since the banning of
Faithless Suiting.
Faithless Suiting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think most cards that didn't come back from that banning, we'll see a lot more play with this card. Obviously, if they play blue as well, because there's never been a replacement for it until now, in my opinion. That's how good I think this card is. I'm looking through my deck. Merchant of the Veil is the first card I'm getting rid of for this, because it's just, so much better.
Yeah, I think
anyway,
I think the best card, best deck, that this can go into, that's already one of the best decks in Modern, is the one with Dragon Rage Channeler, the Surveil on that to make it a 3/3 flyer. This will help it out quite a lot, because I think it already plays like opt and stuff like that. So you just take that out. and Arclight Phoenix as well. You see Arclight Phoenix, you put it straight into graveyard, draw another card. It just works really well with those kind of strategies.
Yeah.
So was this a good pick, guys, for number one?
Oh, look, I don't want to say yes, but yes.
I'll say yes.
Did I gather the right card there?
Oh, the pun master.
All
I mean,
right.
you did give yourself first pick, and I think it was a good one. So good job.
Yeah.
It's better than Ren and 7, that's for sure.
Oh, I agree.
All right. Thank you, guys. Well, that is the end of our set review. We've done it a bit different. Let me know in the comments below if you've liked the way we've done it this time around. I've had fun doing it with you guys. You guys didn't know what was coming up, so I hope you guys enjoyed the little, I guess, topics that I put them under and having each of our cards there. I thought that was an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, I thought it was good because, I mean, we didn't know what you were going to do either. You asked us before we started recording if you wanted it to be a surprise, and I'm glad it was, to be honest, because, yeah, it was good to see, cards that we had put forward to you before, not knowing what each other had picked, and then you've obviously categorized them, and, yeah, when something pops up, you're like, oh, I did think about it like that, so I'm glad that you also did as well, because you're the master. You're our master at that.
Yeah, I think it was quite fun doing it that way. Any final thoughts before we sign off?
I think it's a really good set. I looked through Mythic Spoiler to obviously look at my top 5 and have always followed the subreddit as well. So I see the spoiled cards all the time. But seeing what your top 5 were or what Michiro's top 5 were was interesting because it puts a different spin on what you thought the card would be good for as well. But not only that, there are cards in the set for every format. There's Standard, there's Modern, Pioneer, Commander, CEDH, whatever else there is. I don't play the others, so who cares?
This is my first Innistrad, so I'm curious, I think, to see how the mechanics work, how all these cards work, because they're all new to me. So I'm looking forward to it. More so now after this chat than I was when they released the spoilers. So.
Yeah. I will say I don't like flip cards. I think they take too long. I think they're slow. I wouldn't play them in Modern because there's always like you have to do this to do this kind of thing. And then you get the benefit. So I always think it's too slow. Maybe I'm being naive because I've never played them, so I don't know the true power of them. But in my opinion, like when you're trying to do something in CEDH and needs to be quick or Modern needs to be quick, you kind of like, you don't want to flip a card to get the benefit. You want to just get the benefit, and you can't do that with some of these cards. So I personally don't like the day and night and the flips and transforming and all that kind of stuff, but I've never liked that anyway. In saying that, there are some really good cards in the set regardless, so I'm still buying 2 boxes. Doesn't matter.
And I think there was some other really good cards as well, obviously, that we didn't get to speak to about each and every single card that was from Innistrad Night Hunt, but there are some other really cool cards in there that we haven't talked about. Again, just reiterating to listeners that these are just cards that we found to be interesting for our own sake. But there's definitely other cards there that are quite powerful and quite interesting as well. So yeah, just let us know in the comments below what your favorite card is from the set as well. Definitely want to hear that. And I guess we're to the end of the podcast. So share, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff as well. That would be very helpful. And I guess it's time just to sign off, guys. So on a count of 3, shall we do it? Everything on the stack has resolved.
And good games,
everyone.
everyone.